Just who in the hell do you think you are?
Well...
That was awesome!
He's so cute.
What's that?
He says, welcome to the frickin' Guardians of the Galaxy. Only he didn't use frickin'.
Look out!
Oh, wow.
I tried, guys.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Geek Blend. I'm Jeff. This is Jason. He'll be joining me for some of the reviews we're doing and probably some more stuff down the road too, once we get everything worked out with our schedules. So today we're here to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the follow-up to the very successful first film in the franchise for Marvel, which basically took unknown characters from comics that even people in the comic world didn't know a lot about.
Right.
And really made it something special. Was it in your top 10 of Marvel films or top 5? Like the first one? Like is it in your top 5?
I would say, yeah. Definitely my top 5.
Okay.
I've introduced the movie to numerous people, including my fiance Molly. And she actually enjoyed it. She's was excited about the second one, you know, this one right here. So I knew that it had grabbed some fan base outside of the comic book world, definitely. So it has to be a successful movie if it's doing that with people that really don't follow a lot of the comics. And me personally, I didn't know a lot about Guardians of the Galaxy, other than just talking to my cousin and having some discussions with him about certain comic books and who these characters were. So I thought that it did a really good job creating backstories too.
I agree.
It's solid, well put together movie.
A lot of movies can learn from that first film, taking characters we don't know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I enjoyed Suicide Squad for what it was, but it could have learned a lot from what they did with Guardians, building those characters up.
Right.
And I know it's a different scenario with villains versus like heroes that have to kind of come together, but you could have kind of done it the same way, maybe stolen a little bit from what they did in Guardians 1, but we'll get into something like that down the road. But my background was more of DC Comics. I did read a lot of Marvel stuff when I was younger, a lot of Spider-Man though, mostly Spider-Man stuff, some Iron Man stuff. You're more of a Marvel comic from the background, right?
More, yeah.
Or did you read both?
I was mainly X-Men.
Yeah,
X-Men
90s.
I grew up X-Men 90s, in the 90s, the comics, the whole cartoon. I have the entire series on DVD at home. I followed it. I mean, it was my entire childhood. So, yeah, I was more on the Marvel comic book side of things. DC comics were okay. Once again, going back with my cousin, he was a huge Superman and Batman fan. So of course, whenever I was over at his house and reading those comic books, and the death of Superman was obviously one of the things that really drew my attention towards the DC side. But as far as like Marvel comics, it was mainly just the X-Men, and that whole mutant academy and things like that. That's really where a lot of my background came from. And then kind of just started picking up interest as far as like with Spider-Man, when they started doing series on that, as far as like cartoons and things of that nature.
What was the name of that one that was so good that you're talking about? Do you remember the name of it? I can't remember. Wasn't Spectacular Spider-Man, was it?
No,
that one wasn't as good to me.
There was a few, and I mean nowadays, hell, you can turn on any Disney Channel, and they've got they have a cartoon for everything.
It's true, yeah.
They
did a Guardians cartoon right after the show was.
Is it
still on?
It's still on.
Really?
They're going into another season. I don't know how I feel about it, but I've watched a few episodes here and there. I don't know. There was an Avengers cartoon series that caught my eye. If you give me a sec, I can actually probably find that one on there. It was really well written, and they went really in depth with the characters as far as like villains too, which I was very impressed with, because a lot of these shows they'll show the superhero side of it, but they, the villain, they'll just throw a villain in there just for somebody to battle. But they did a really good job, like with the Wrecking Crew and these other groups of villains that a lot of people don't know a lot about or really give two shits about. And for some reason they were bringing these characters to life in these shows, and I thought it was really neat how they did it, because it just kind of created, it drew my attention and had me kind of more interested to watch more and more. And the series actually, episodes tied together well.
Good.
Which sometimes a lot of those cartoons, they didn't do that, I don't think.
No, they didn't. A lot
They
of them
didn't.
didn't.
Yeah, it had a name. If you give me a second here, I can look it up.
I know they've got some Avengers stuff going on right now on like Disney Channel and stuff, of course, with Disney owning them and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I watched the X-Men 90s series, which was great. And as far as comics goes, with the X-Men stuff, in the 90s run X-Men comics is probably, I think it's probably the best run of X-Men comics and maybe even Marvel comics they've done in a long time. I mean,
Right.
not only did you have great writers, but you had Jim Lee doing the artwork for it, which was outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those original covers are still some of my favorites from
Right.
like the original, like number one, the folded out, and it had that whole poster of all of them, like on the first issue. That was, I think I might still have that up in one of my rooms, like at my parents' house or something like that. So,
yeah, this was the Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Oh, yeah, I watched
the
some of that.
Avengers. That's just a volume right there, volume 3, Iron Man Unleashed. But it was done, I think, sometime around in the 2000 somewhere. I really don't know.
I believe it's on Netflix too right now.
They pulled
Yeah.
it.
Are you
They
serious?
pulled it from Netflix, and that was what drew me onto it. And when I realized that they had pulled it from Netflix, I immediately got on Amazon and was looking up how much it was actually going to cost to put a series together, put a collection together.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Do it. Yeah.
I think it's something I would have. It's a staple that I would really like to have in my collection, because it's a solid cartoon show that really did. It was really well written.
You bring up the villains thing. In the Guardians 1, Ronan the Accuser was the villain. He's one of my favorite villains from the comics, like that I've read in the Marvel era. Like, and they really didn't do him a justice at all. Like, they wasted that character, in my opinion, completely. Marvel has a serious problem with villains not making their villains worth a shit, or they're one-note villains and they're not developed well enough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Loki, of course, he's been spread out for more than one film. Red Skull and the original Captain America, they did a pretty good job with him. After that, they just kind of like, this villain's gonna die. Screw it, we'll just throw him in there. And one of the worst ones was Ultron. I mean, they just terrible what they did with that. So going into this, I wasn't sure with the previews, and I didn't know who the villain was going to be. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be a spoiler review, so we're going to get into everything about it. Really quickly, it had to live up to the hype of the first one. Do you think it lived up to the hype for the first film? Do you think it did at all?
I have to say I think it did. I really do. I think they did a really good job of, like you said, hiding things from us, which I appreciate, because there's nothing I can't stand more than when I love a good trailer. I love a good hype. Nothing gets me more excited and more, builds more anticipation for a movie than a good trailer. But I feel like some of these movies some of these trailers give away too much.
100% agree.
Which was my favorite thing about this movie, because going into it, I had no clue who the villain was. I really thought that they did a good job kind of throwing a little plot twist into it, even though we knew who Ego was. I mean, if you had any kind of knowledge of him, so he's not a good guy, but the Marvel universe and the way they're twisting these characters and doing things in these movies, they're not going by the guidelines of the comics, which I think it's fun in a sense.
We don't want to know what's coming.
Exactly.
So it's nice that they change some stuff up.
They're definitely throwing us curveballs here. But at times it can get annoying, like you said, with how we dealt with Civil War, and we didn't lose a single soul. And in war, casualty is what war is.
That was my biggest problem with Civil War. Is nobody died and nobody gave a shit about anybody. To throw really quick something out there, I know we're kind of going off topic for a second, but that's fine. With Civil War and Batman v Superman, we know that the reason they started doing Civil War is because they were doing Batman versus Superman. Mm-hmm. The problem everybody has with the Martha scene in or not the Martha scene. It's the scene when Superman comes to talk to Bruce. Hopefully, not fight him.
Mm-hmm.
Batman won't listen to him, but he doesn't know the guy, so he doesn't give a shit about him.
Right.
But then you turn around and you go to Civil War. They all meet in that airport like hangar area on the runway, and they all know each other. They have a long history.
Mm-hmm.
So when Captain America says, "Let's fight," we have to fight. Nobody says anything.
Mm-hmm.
These are all your friends, so you're just going to fight them.
Right.
Not only that, you're gonna throw a cargo trailer at a 17-year-old kid in a spider suit.
Right.
That you don't know is invincible.
Right.
I had a lot of qualms with that scene, and people tout it as like so good. That scene was like what made the movie. I disagree. It's what took the movie away from me. That's where I left it, because I knew nobody was going to get hurt in that scene. I knew nobody was going to die. Like at that point, I already knew nobody was going to die.
Yeah.
Because how it had been going, it just, to me, it felt a little bit too much like, oh, let's just throw the entire toy box action figures together and let's make one giant action figure scene.
Yeah.
That's what I thought about that scene, and a lot of people say it's like the best part of the film. It ruined the film for me personally.
I agree. I wasn't a big fan of it. The only positive thing that I took from it was getting to see Ant-Man turn into Giant Man.
Yeah, that was I was gonna say.
I thought that was cool as hell, but other than that, I thought it was a freaking hot mess. It was just a shipwreck. Yeah, it was a shit show.
Yeah.
It was just nonstop, back and forth. Yeah,
it was just joke after joke after joke,
punching, and I don't know. It could have been done in a much better way. I thought, but like you said, not to like completely steer off topic, but the whole point of war is there's casualties and there's some sort of, I think, repercussion. There's some that when you go to war, you're obviously doing it for a reason, but at the same time, like something at the end of war, there's some you've gained something from it. Whereas in this movie, they just fought.
That's all. Yeah,
and that was it.
They were still separate sides at the end of it.
Still separate sides.
I mean,
it was. There was just so much more that could have came out of that movie that I believe that they really missed the boat on that one.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite stories in the Marvel comic field. Like, it's one of my favorite graphic novels. Period.
Yeah, and
even the prologue series after, where Captain America does die. I mean, that's together. That whole comic series. There's so many characters in it compared to the small number of characters in the movie. Mm-hmm. So it really had more of an impact when people were dying in the book.
Yeah,
that's why I know that's probably why they didn't kill anybody off in the movie, because they only had 6 people per side. Mm-hmm. But you gotta do, somebody has to die.
Yeah,
or because if we're gonna get into the Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity Stones stuff in the next Avengers 2 films, so people can be brought back to life. I mean, in the first movie, we never know. He might just kill everybody except for the people who take care of him, mm-hmm. and then they bring everybody back in part 2. But we don't know. I don't think Marvel has the balls to do that, in all honesty. I really don't. But I hope they're learning from what they're doing.
I do too, and that's just it. There's a fine line that I think that they can probably tiptoe on, but you go from their standpoint on the movies where they won't kill a single soul off, and then in your comic books there's how many multiverses of just this person has died by this person's hand, and there's just death and this and that, and they've killed off numerous characters, and I think it's like they can't find that perfect gray area, or that perfect medium of just keeping characters alive but at the same time killing off certain ones. It's like they either don't or they kill the whole farm, and then they rewrite an entire another universe, mm-hmm. or another whole series of Bruce Banner is in one universe, he's dead, and there's another I'm having a brain fart at the time, but
there's another Hulk,
but there's another Hulk, and
there's an Asian guy, isn't it, or something like that?
Yes, there's an Asian, mm-hmm. and then we're killing off Wolverine, and his daughter's the new Wolverine, and they're doing it, and I think it's cool. It's keeping these characters and their backgrounds and whatnot fresh, but at the same time, there's got to be a fine line they have to ride, where it's just keep some of these characters alive, kill off the ones that eventually you feel like it's time for them to go.
They've run their course.
Yes, they've run their course. There's no better way to put it.
And then we get to Guardians 2, and I went into this with like literally, I went in with no expectations because I didn't want to go in with a positive or negative side. I've seen the reviews. I know they're mixed, so I didn't want to go in thinking, well, it's either gonna be good or bad. I won't have a center ground. So I went in just flat, no expectations. That's kind of what you have to do nowadays with all the shit on the internet that you see every day.
Yeah.
You know it's gonna like infect your mind occasionally, and it has on some things, and I've backtracked.
Everybody has their opinion. And
Exactly.
That's the beauty of it. But some people really do. When I go see a movie with certain people, which I try to most of the time, I usually either am by myself or with my fiance. But I really don't try to listen to what anybody says until I can form my own opinion.
Exactly.
But not to interrupt.
Oh
but
no,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
that's perfect because I think that's what is going to make us better as reviewers. Because I liked Batman v Superman, you didn't. We have different opinions, and that's what people need. That like, I know you read on the internet that it's only Marvel or DC, but it's not. You can like both.
Yes.
You still can, and that's why I think we got to find a happy medium out there, people, because it's getting pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of channels out there that are just trashing one or the other, or all of it. So I mean, but going into this, back to the movie, you go into it basically. It sets up in the beginning, Star-Lord's mom, Quill, and Ego are together, and first thing that shocked me in this movie was how great the de-aging of Kurt Russell was in the beginning. I was like, are you kidding me with this? Like, that looked like they pulled him from
The
the
70s.
70s or 80s. Yeah,
yeah.
like, I was like, wow, he looks like he looked...
He was pretty.
Yeah, he looked great. They did a great job. And then the same thing happened in Ant-Man in the beginning with Michael Douglas. I was like floored.
That's true.
How well they did that.
Yeah.
And Ant-Man was another one that I went in thinking this is either going to be hit or miss because they lost their director a lot of stuff. And I enjoyed Ant-Man. I know it was like it followed that Marvel formula almost to a T. So you could basically know exactly what was going to happen. But I think with Paul Rudd and what they did with a different kind of a character, that worked. But again, I'm off topic here. But that really worked with the de-aging of Kurt Russell. People are being blown away by that. I think it's the best I've seen yet.
Right.
So we move into that. We know that's his father. We get into the present time where it's the Guardians of the Galaxy. They're doing, they're fighting like this interdimensional being. And the intro is another dancing intro, of course.
Yeah.
But this time they use Baby Groot. And when it started, I'm like, this is going to go either one or two ways. It's going to be too much Baby Groot, or they're going to know how to use him effectively. And I think they did to an extent. It might have been a little bit too much.
It could have been it was a little over the top.
Yeah, a little bit.
His cuteness is what draws you in.
It does.
What keeps... you can't be mad at him.
Yeah.
You can't be mad at at any of it because he's so damn cute.
Exactly.
And no matter what he does, you're gonna sit there and be like, "Oh, he's so adorable."
He's so adorable. Like, yeah.
Fuck it, he's having fun.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. And that's why I like the intro. If they would have gone on for another 10 to 15, maybe 30 seconds, it would have been too much.
Yeah.
And I think they knew what to do. They probably had cut it down even more than what it was. But the fact that like they're all fighting this monster in the background, and he's like just kind of walking around the whole thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say his interaction with the entire fight going on, and Drax's body flopping behind him, and him turning around and kind of glancing back, and his little waving at
he's waving at Gamora, and she's like, "Hi."
Yeah.
Like, Groot, get out of here! You're gonna get hurt. And he's just waving at her. She's like, "Oh, hi." Yeah. It was really good how they did that. I think. And it's funny too when you think about it. That's Vin Diesel's voice that they've tweaked.
Yeah.
The pitch higher and stuff to get that Baby Groot voice, which is great because
right.
I think that was a perfect choice for him too. His voice in the first film.
Yeah.
It worked really well. So we kind of, we're gonna figure out eventually that Peter Quill is gonna meet his dad, which is Ego the Living Planet, basically. So when I see him as Kurt Russell too, my mind's like, okay, I know who this is. So how is that gonna work? But the way they bring it in, where he's basically like just a form that he can project to people instead of just being this planet that moves around. I mean, I thought it worked really well. Plus, it's Kurt Russell, and you can't really go wrong with him.
Yeah,
he did a really good job in this film. Of course, he ends up being the villain in the film. He was very well fleshed out because of him and Peter Quill's relationship is what fleshed his character out even more. And the intro with him and Peter Quill's mom set it up even more. It got more of a you felt for Peter Quill because of what happened, what he had to do to his father, and it was because of Kurt Russell and setting it up and drawing him in. He drew us in,
yes,
the audience, while he was drawing him in too, and I thought it worked I think my favorite character in this film, like that worked the most, was Drax. His humor, like with Rocket and everybody else in the film, with him and Peter Quill and him and Mantis, the way I thought he was hilarious.
He stole the show.
I agree.
Honestly, from the first movie, I thought, Dave Bautista. Don't get me wrong. I'm still a big nerd for wrestling. I kind of thought his comeback to wrestling was a joke, but him in the first one. I mean, he was great. I thought he played the part, of a psychopathic assassin. Whose family was ripped from him by Thanos, and he's been hell bent on revenge. But in this movie, they brought this more lighter side of him out. He's almost like the comic relief, and like I said, that banner between him and Rocket, it had me. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I mean, I laugh at movies sometimes, but this movie, it had me kind of falling out of the front of my seat a few times.
I was laughing quite a bit. Yeah, I think the whole theater laughed really well, and the jokes worked well. I mean,
jokes were awesome.
They were great jokes. Some people might argue, I've seen some reviews, people are arguing that there's too many jokes, but they work, and they're in the context of the film, and they work for what they're doing. If it's out of the context for a film, and it's just there to be there, like some of the other Marvel films have done, it doesn't work. But these worked really well, and it helped the context of the film. With the characters, it grew Drax's character, and it grew Rocket's character because of his wall he puts up of emotional wall. He won't let anybody in. And at the end, he's the one who lets everybody in. I mean, and it worked really well.
Well, and it shows them growing more as a family.
Yes.
Instead of them just being, a bunch of just separate strangers that has formed this group. They did save the galaxy in this first movie, but they kind of wanted you to start seeing them more as a family and not just these, complete strangers coming together as friends to go out and do a job, and which is save the world or save the galaxy. Now they are a family. They love one another. They care for each other, and they're out there having fun. And I mean, honestly, they did just a bang up job. I thought getting all that to kind of come to light in this movie.
Yeah, they did. They did really good job with this movie. I was really impressed. Of course, Rocket was really good in it. And another one that stole the show was Yondu. For me, Michael Rooker as Yondu was just really done really well. The end part, we were talking about this before we started recording here. The end part of the movie, like I said, spoilers are coming again, where Peter Quill realizes his father was Ego, but his dad was Yondu.
Yeah.
It worked in the context, but it wasn't as heavy as a moment as it should have been. Because it should have had a little bit more of a thread plan in the beginning, or a seed plan in the beginning, like, okay, Yondu raised me, but he wasn't my dad, blah, 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 I need to find my real dad. And maybe mention Yondu a couple times. They did, but they didn't do it in that context, and it wasn't as heavy of an emotional moment as the Rocket saying goodbye to Yondu moment was for me.
Right.
That was a lot heavier to me, in my opinion. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel it was. I mean, I liked Yondu in the first movie.
Me too.
I really enjoyed his entire, every scene that he was in. I think his character is great. It's played really well. This movie just it just kind of kept me wanting more of him. I really wanted him to be in almost involved in every scene. I mean, killing somebody by whistling with a flying arrow. I mean, you didn't get any more badass than that, And then he has this metallic, strapped on mohawk that kind of generates his power. I mean, I fell in love with the character pretty much immediately from the moment he jumped onto this, on the screen in this movie.
Speaking of badass too. The scene with him and Rocket and Groot break out of the prison on his ship, on the Ravager ship. And I think he probably killed, 150, 200 dudes with that arrow?
Slaughtered the entire fleet.
Bodies falling all around them as they're walking through the ship. And it was just a great scene. The music also in this movie worked really well for each scene that they used it in.
Yeah.
Just like the first film. I mean, they picked a great soundtrack. I mean, 80s and stuff.
Yeah, if they haven't nailed anything, better than anybody else, it's definitely the soundtrack.
Yeah, they do. They do it well.
I think that's kind of what makes this movie so fun. Anyway, is that it's a great mixture of not only, great dialogue, but it also has amazing music that fits. It fits so well. Every scene. They've picked, I think, the perfect song that they could possibly find. Yeah. It's just so well thought out and put together as far as that standpoint. And that was one of my favorite scenes too. And when him and Rocket kind of developed that relationship together, and then the whole back and forth with Groot trying to get the mohawk.
Oh, that was great.
That was just. I mean,
he brings back a desk.
A severed thumb. A desk. I mean,
you don't happen to have he said, hey, what do you say? Like, you don't happen to have a freezer full of, like, spray human parts around here. He's like, no. He's like, we're not going to talk about this again.
Yeah. It was all just so well put together. That scene right there is probably my absolute favorite part of the
really
whole
was
movie.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might have to agree with that. Like, it was just, everything that they did worked well in that scene. Like, and the scene, of course, before that, when they're talking to the new leader of the Ravager crew, Taserface, and Rocket literally is giving him shit the entire time about his name. Like, you chose Taserface, and then the crew starts laughing at him, and then it becomes a joke throughout the whole movie, and it works really well. And that was a great scene. It was hilarious.
Yeah,
and Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon nailed it again. Of course, I saw some behind the scenes of him from this one where he's got a head rig on, so you could see his emotions in his face.
Right.
And he's just going for it the whole time.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he's a good actor anyway. And I think he's perfect for the voice as well in that.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper is great. I like him. I really did like him a lot. And, I mean, honestly, when I saw the first movie and I didn't kind of look too much into, other than I knew Vin Diesel was doing the voice of Groot, but I had no clue that was Bradley Cooper. I mean, when I found that out, I was blown away. I really liked him as an actor. I thought he was, he's great in all the movies that I've seen him in. But what he was doing with his voice, I had, it just kind of threw me off. I was like, wow, that's Bradley Cooper, And even when I still try to listen for it, I have a hard time. I have a hard time hearing it.
Yeah,
I really do.
All you hear is Rocket anymore because he really took his voice to a grovelly, kind of more dirty next level with it, and it really works. And you can hear Bradley Cooper in it if you really focus, but all you can really hear is Rocket. I mean, and he did such a good job with that. I mean, I thought he really nailed that voice, and he was one of my favorite parts of the first movie, and it carries over to this one.
Yeah,
like Drax, Rocket, and Yondu. We should have. I know it was Peter Quill's father story, and I know a lot of people have complained that we didn't get enough of all the other characters, but I think they interwove everything together with the Peter Quill stuff with Gamora and his dad and Mantis, and then we had with Drax and Mantis, and then Rocket and Yondu. I think it all kind of mixed together well, so we had a very equal balance of everybody, and it wasn't more of Peter Quill. It wasn't. There was a very level, I guess, evenness to each character in the film, in my opinion.
Well, and then Gamora and Nebula.
That was great too. Yeah,
bringing them together, you really thought that there was this everlasting hatred between Nebula and her desire to kill Gamora, and then just out of the blue, they start developing this relationship, even though there's still kind of this weird awkwardness and iffiness, which I think is great because it's going to hopefully trickle into the next movie. And definitely, I foresee it something happening in the Infinity Wars. Because she's hell bent on killing her father, Nebula, that is, and I think it's going to create a really cool side story. I'm fingers crossed, because I mean she's a badass character, and I really like that part too, where they kind of brought her into the Guardians, and her and Mantis. What
both
they
new great additions too.
Yeah,
they've done really well.
Yeah, her Mantis's character with Drax, and how you can kind of start seeing this little love. This little love.
They planted it a little bit.
Yeah. I think Drax has fallen for her. I don't know. Like I really get kind of bothered when they try to squeeze a lot of these love stories.
Yeah.
Into these movies. I know
Hulk and Black Widow.
Yeah, it just, I mean, I know these are movies and they want to create these feel good moments and all this, but
It's got to make sense from the film and the moment, and it's got to flow
yeah,
properly. It's got to make sense.
yeah.
It can't feel forced. And there are some things like
There are a few, but with I that's what I like the most about it because Drax was really just
Yeah.
like he doesn't hold anything back, and he was telling her she's ugly, and then he kind of started lightening up on her throughout the movie. I don't know, I like that part too.
Me
about
too.
it.
I thought it was great. I really liked how he was like, "Oh yeah, you're hideous," and he would like when she woke him up in the bed on Ego on the planet Ego, and he was like imagining what it was like to be with her, and he was like pretending to throw up. I thought that was freaking
It
hilarious.
was great.
Yeah, Dave Bautista really I think he's going to do well in Hollywood. I think he really is. He's perfect for Drax because of that just flat, just say whatever the hell's on your mind kind of
Yeah.
tone, but have that more.
He nailed it.
And every emotion that he feels, he like brings it out. Like, cause it's especially when he's laughing and the humor, he really like pushes it out there and like. Yeah, I think he did a great job in this movie. Dave Bautista does a good job. I like him.
Yeah.
I was worried at first in the first one when they announced him because I didn't see him in anything at that point. But then he really surprised me in the first film quite a bit, and I was
Yeah.
just happy that he did.
No, I agree. I really felt like I was on the fence about it, but I mean, when you look at his physique and you look at his body type and everything, and then you look at Drax in the comic books, I mean, there was
Yeah.
nobody else better to play him. I mean, honestly, he's kind of like Patrick Stewart and Professor X. I
Yeah.
mean, there's just some of these people that when you look at him, you're like, that person was honestly born to play that
role.
part.
Yeah.
He is Drax, and what they're doing with the character, I think I'm gonna enjoy him more and more throughout the comics. Whereas I thought he was pretty low on my list as far as the Guardians as character wise, because I just his sense of humor was like you said, he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand when you're cracking a joke, and he doesn't understand things like that. Everything has to be straightforward with him, and I thought that was going to get annoying after a while, but it really didn't. It works well, and the character, I think, like I said, he's going to just get better and better with as far as these movies go on.
Yeah, I agree. With Chris Pratt, I thought he did a really good job, of course, as usual. He's still one of my favorite actors, and I think my favorite thing he's ever done is still going to be Parks and Recreation. Because, I mean, he made that show so much better. I mean, it was a great show in general, but he took it to another level, and he's got that charisma, and he did a good job, like, emoting and showing those emotions in this film with his father and how to deal with it, and that scene where he realized that his ego killed his mother. I mean, that really sold it. But he did a great job, too. Him and Gamora, I'm glad they didn't, like, at the ending, I was expecting them to kiss.
Yeah.
Like, and it would have felt forced to me.
They dangled that in front of your face a few times, and you really like. I know that scene where they were dancing. I was just like, please don't. I like the weird awkwardness that they have around each other. Even though both of them probably or both of them care about each other, and both of them do have a thing for each other.
Let it grow some more.
Yeah, let it grow and let it move across a few more movies. And I think even within maybe these next two movies, with all the death and stuff that's going to be happening, or fingers crossed, maybe it can kind of help with kind of bring out that part of their relationship a little more. But I mean, towards the end I was getting kind of scared, like you said, with them ended up maybe kissing or something like that. But
she basically leaves it unspoken and it works, saying it like he did before, like it's unspoken, and now she says it and it works. And I agree. I hope that they continue to let it grow more over in the next 2 or 3 movies, and including the Infinity War saga, and like figure out what they're gonna do with that. Maybe that all that death, like you said, fingers crossed, which is weird that we're wishing for death in a movie, but they got to do something like that to really make Infinity War better than what they've done, like with the Ultron. Even in that film, I thought they should have killed somebody off, not just freaking. I can't think of his name now. He's such a worthless character. The speedster in Ultron.
Quicksilver.
Quicksilver, yeah. I mean, Quicksilver, if you want to see a good version of Quicksilver, you can go watch X-Men. Was it The Last Stand?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was so good in that character. But, Yeah, we need some like meaty characters killed off.
Yeah.
So we can feel like there are stakes for these characters. Like going into Infinity War, I'm not feeling any stakes.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get anything in Civil War. And in this one, I didn't expect anybody to die, but we got Yondu died. So now I feel more of a stakes going into a Guardians 3
Right.
than I do an Avengers movie because of how well they did this film. And again, this time around, James Gunn knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
They picked the perfect guy to do it. And he, by the way, the co-pilot or the first mate of Yondu that picked up the mantle, that's James Gunn's brother.
Oh,
in
really?
real life, yeah.
Okay.
And what was his name in the comics, the character?
Once again, got to resort to my good old Google here.
Or Bing, whatever you prefer.
Yeah. It is Kraglin.
Yeah, Kraglin. Okay. I think it's great that they're at the end they showed him in that like one of the after credit scenes where he's trying to start using the arrow with the fin and the whistle.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be. I really hope they continually bring him a little bit more in and develop his character more in the next time around because I know eventually we're going to probably have 6 people total.
Yeah.
In the Guardians. And I think Nebula will end up coming back and being with them. Because I think that dynamic works. Because even though they're getting better in their relationship, there's still that can she trust her a little bit? Or is she going to screw her over? Or is she just going to let her die? Or even though you could tell that that bond is starting to form that she always wanted to have with her sister.
Right.
Nebula did with Gamora. But Thanos forced them to fight each other and tore Nebula apart piece by piece every time she lost, which is tragic to hear. Also, it helps build Thanos as a character down the road and not just some guy that we see in after credit scenes. Now we know from Guardians 1 and Guardians 2 he's a giant asshole and doesn't give a crap about anybody, even his own children, which I think in the comics he has quite a few children, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So I wonder if they're going to explore that maybe down the road too, even after he's dead, like more of his children or if that's going to come to play in this. So I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was hilarious. I thought the action scenes worked really well. I thought also the scene where they're all the Ravagers are trying to sneak up on the camp and Rocket's like pretending he's inside whistling or singing and he's setting booby traps for this giant group of Ravagers getting caught in every single booby trap he gets thrown through there. I thought it worked really well.
I don't think there was never a dull moment.
There
in the
wasn't.
movie.
Yeah,
honestly,
I don't think so
that
either.
was probably the best part about it.
I agree.
Honestly, there was never a time in the movie where they kind of slowed the pace down. I think they either kept it at a nice medium pace or it was just nonstop balls to the wall action.
Yeah.
And that you can't ask for anything more out of a movie. I mean, it's one of those movies where it's like, if you had to sit there and go to the bathroom, you're just waiting for that one scene where you're like, okay, things are going to slow down for a second. I can hurry up and maybe take a minute or two to kind of run in the bathroom. There was never that moment. Never that moment. My ass never wanted to come out of the seat, and I thought that you can't ask for anything more out of a movie than that.
Agreed.
So I mean, coming into this movie, with the expectations that I had, I wasn't throwing them like through the ceiling. But I mean, I could definitely go see this movie probably 2-3 more times.
Agreed.
I was kind of hoping for a few more Easter eggs, kind of like the first one, where you had the collector's room, and there was just so much to take in and see, and you're looking around, and I think my eyes were kind of doing that through a few scenes to hopefully catch a few things here and there. Maybe I did miss something, but I think it's kind of given me more reason to go back and watch the movie again, if not once or twice. But the whole Howard the Duck thing.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. All of a sudden, they're on this. When they first introduced Yondu again, they're on this. I guess basically like a brothel planet. I guess you would say, or like just basically like a Vegas planet. Which what it kind of looked like. And there's like kind of panning through all of Yondu's Ravager crew as they're like talking to all the I guess robot prostitutes.
Yeah, the hoes.
Yeah,
the horse.
And then they go past, and the Howard the Duck is saying something about once you go duck.
Yeah, once you go
duck, it's
quack, you never go back.
Yeah, once you go quack, you never go back.
Yeah.
And that was that. That's 2 Howard the Duck Easter eggs in Guardians films now. I wonder if that's like teasing. Maybe they'll do something with him in TV or Netflix down the road, because I don't know if people could still get past that. I mean,
It was funny. I was reading the top 10 worst Marvel movies. Just a silly little thing I came across on Facebook. And a lot of them were movies that weren't backed by Marvel. They were Marvel movies, but Marvel didn't really have a lot of they didn't have their hands in it. And Howard Duck ranked number 3, second or third on that list.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, the movie was from the 80s and it was a little cheesy, but I don't think it was that bad to be rated that high on a movie when there were some turds in that list. I mean, Spider-Man 3, which was a movie that I paid, $16 to go see in an IMAX. I don't even remember if I seen it in 3D or not. I wanted to get up and leave when he was dancing in emo mode. Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I was so excited for that movie. Jamie Foxx as Electro. Then when you started hearing, little things here and there about Rhino actually being in it, which he's one of my favorite villains in the Spider-Man.
Completely wasted.
God
completely wasted.
Bless. Paul Giamatti, I love the guy to death.
Me too.
He's a great actor, but why in the hell would you ever have him depicted
It doesn't make
Rhino?
sense at all.
It made my head hurt. It made me want to vomit. I don't know. I was really upset about that movie. But to throw not to veer too much off subject, but like I said, to throw Howard the Duck that high on that list, I kind of thought that was a little weird. And
which was a George Lucas movie, by the way.
It was, and the movie
I didn't
was
hate
not
it either,
that
and it
bad.
wasn't like as bad as people think. I mean,
No.
Go back and watch it. Of course, it was an '80s film, so it doesn't hold up as well. But back in the day, it was funny and it worked. For I mean, a lot of people say it didn't work because it was a duck and a lady. But you know what? That's Howard the Duck. Like, the comic run was weird and it worked too.
Yeah.
So if you guys are comic people out there, go check out some of the Howard the Duck stuff from the last 10, 15 years. Like, some of it really is really good.
Yeah.
But
And then Seth Green, right? He does the voice of it, right?
Yeah.
That's even more incentive. I mean, Seth Green, I don't know why. I want to hate the guy, but I think some of his a lot of the stuff he does is funny. And
Chicken,
now he's the voice of Howard the
I
Duck.
know.
And
bring us a Seth Green Howard the Duck film from Marvel. Please do that, Disney.
that'd be great.
I would love to see that. I mean, I think what they're doing is just setting up stuff and planting it in people's heads, and I think they're going to do it again down the road. But I think we will get it eventually. Mm-hmm. And so I think also sometime soon we should do like a top 10 of our worst superhero films, like, just to throw out there, because I mean I got some thoughts on some stuff.
I was gonna say I can definitely come up with a few.
I could probably do a whole video about Spider-Man 3, by the way. The
Yeah.
expectations that movie had. But anyway.
We should do that while we're taking a dump.
Yeah, we should.
Talking about a dump while we're taking a dump.
That'd be a classic video right there.
Yeah.
I think this really lived up to the hype. I didn't expect it to.
No.
And after some of the ratings and reviews I've read, I was like, wow, this might suck. It was the opposite of that. It really was really well done, directed well, the acting was great, the jokes were great, the action was great. Everything flowed. It wasn't, like he was saying, there's no point in the movie where you want to get up. I think it was probably 35 minutes before it ended. I had to go to the bathroom really bad, and I did not want to leave. I wanted to see. I knew if I got up, I'd miss something that I wanted to see, because there was no moment where I was dozing or that I wanted to get up and leave and go to the bathroom or do something. But all of it was great.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we're going to do for our rating system yet on this, so maybe we'll start with out of 10. But your final thoughts real quick on the movie before we rate it? I mean, your expectations going in and what you came out afterwards?
Same as yours. I was pretty much not going to hype myself up about it. I really didn't want to get too excited about it because, like the first one, I didn't know what to expect. I ended up loving the movie. I love this movie, I think, even more. One of my favorite parts of the movie, too, was that epic scene where him and his dad are coming at each other.
Okay.
And his dad, and they're these celestial beings that can basically generate things and use their body to generate these kind of like asteroid suits of armor.
Yeah.
And his dad's, turning into this giant rock monster, and then all of a sudden you see these yellow rocks forming around Chris Pratt's character, and you're like, what the hell's going on? And he's a giant Pac-Man coming at him.
Wah, wah, wah.
So,
Had the sound effects and everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's just everything about the movie.
It worked really well. It did.
They just couldn't. I don't think they could have screwed anything up.
Agree.
Just honestly, I mean, it's definitely surpassed and jumped over the original one, which most of the time, like they say, the sequel,
it's hard to do. Yeah,
it's very hard to do. This one definitely went over the first one. Other than the fact that the first one had a more badass villain. Ronan the Accuser he's one of my favorites too.
they just underused him by.
They underused him. Thanos, I cannot wait. He's one of my absolute favorite Marvel villains, along with Apocalypse.
Oh yeah.
And I can't. I mean, I'm like a giddy little kid. I can't wait for the Infinity War and just to see Thanos kick everyone's ass. But I mean, other than that, I could have used a little bit of a Thanos fix in this movie, or
I expected in one of the 5 after scenes. By the way,
Yeah.
there are 5 little mini
5.
after scenes, and they're nothing like too big. They're nothing like, but I expected Thanos in at least one of them.
Yeah.
or something to kind of point towards that, but it didn't.
I think the one that got me the most excited was the Warlock.
Yeah, Adam Warlock thing. Yeah,
it's-
what was that group of what? What is the name of that group that they did the job for in the beginning, and then they were trying to fight them the whole time or kill them because they stole those batteries that they were trying to
that group of people that
the gold people. Yeah,
I can't remember.
I can't remember the name of them, but another scene really quickly that of course we'll probably talk about again is when all their ships are coming after the Guardians out in the beginning. Because Rocket stole the batteries they were protecting from this like celestial demon thing that came in, like this like creature that they fought and killed, and all their ships aren't piloted by people; they are piloted in a command center, like a video game. Like they have video game sounds when they lose, like wah, 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 wah. Like when they died,
Yeah.
like they had sounds from like 80s video games,
Yeah.
and that was hilarious the
It's
whole
clever.
time. And that the one guy was left surviving at
Yeah.
the end, and Drax like. Put a tow cable out the airlock with a spacesuit on and killed him, and they were like, "You suck!" Like he was like the only one left. He did better than all of them, and they still told him he sucked.
Yeah.
And it was like, but it was hilarious. It was a really really funny thing they did with that. So, out of 10, I don't know. The first one I'd probably give like a 7.5 out of 10. I'm probably gonna go 8.5 out of 10 on this one.
8.5.
Yeah.
I would probably, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I can, if I could go by half points, but I would definitely give this an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Okay.
There's, like I said, there was a few things that I wanted out of it that I think that they could have given us a little more, as far as a little more development with Ego. Don't get me wrong, having as much Kurt Russell on the screen as you can possibly get, there's nothing wrong with that.
No
but
kidding.
like the scene when you see Ego and you see that
The
face
planet, yeah.
and that planet, it's so overwhelming, and you're thinking like, holy shit,
They're gonna
these
do
guys
this.
aren't fighting a person. These guys aren't fighting a Titan, they're fighting a planet, and this planet is alive, and you actually get to see it. And then that was your only scene. That was it. That was all you got to see. Other than a few scenes when he's transformed, the surrounding rocks and stuff like that into his face. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was great, but like there was just a few little tiny details as far as that I really wish they could have kind of done a lot more with, just to give us, like I said, Marvel does a bang up job with giving these backstories, I think, with their superheroes, but they don't do enough with their villains. They just kind of throw these villains at you, and then they just rip them out of your, rip them away from you immediately once they're killed at the end, because the superhero always has to prevail. It's my only qualm with them. And
I still think they've developed him better than they've done quite a few other villains.
oh,
in their,
for
in their
sure,
franchise.
yeah,
Like,
because they
even
made
with Ronan,
yeah.
I mean,
they made you like Kurt Russell.
yeah,
That was the thing. That was the problem.
That's the biggest thing about it. You really liked his character before you really. I mean, you knew something was going on with him. Like it's too good to be true, kind of thing.
Yeah.
With him and Peter Quill, but yeah, they made you feel for him and care about his character, and then you realize he's the bad guy the whole time, and then
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that now what I feel for this guy, because I liked him as a character, but now I have to feel bad for Peter Quill and what he has to do, and he has to destroy this planet and basically, give away his celestial powers that he found out he had as well.
Yeah, just like seeing that opening scene with him and Peter Quill's mom, you saw how much he loved her and their interaction with each other, and I think that's what immediately kind of gets you connected to that character, and you're really thinking the whole time, you're like, I know Ego in the comics is a villain, and I know he's up to no good, but with what Marvel does, and they don't stick to the comic books quite as tightly as DC does with some of their, theirs. You're thinking maybe they're going to flip the script on you, and Ego's going to be kind of this good guy, and he's really going to, show compassion and love and care for Peter, and maybe that's what they're kind of trying to do with this character by, showing how much he loved his mom, and where, kind of showing you how Peter came about by, his conception of him, and I mean, they really got you attached to that character immediately, and then they just boom, light switch, and now all of a sudden he's trying to destroy the universe, and I don't know, I thought that part was. It was great and all, and I really wish they'd do that with a lot more of their other villains.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, make you care about them and care that they're on the screen as a character, and not just be like, "Oh, I'm a villain and I'm going to twirl my mustache and come kill you." That's which a lot of villains, like in other movies, there's a lot of great villains in movies that they could pull inspiration from. So I mean, hopefully they will eventually, and hopefully Thanos will not just be an offshoot. And I really hope, please don't let Thanos crack jokes. Because he doesn't crack jokes.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
If they go down that road, I might...
Yeah, I mean, very
I mean, I'm not going to flip a table over or anything like, obviously the proverbial table. But, I don't know. Like, they did it with Ultron, and it really irritated the hell out of me. Thanos is not a joking character. He, punches holes through people. He's obsessed with death. So I really hope they kind of stick with that character, and not to fly off subject again, but one of those things that I caught wind of a long time ago that Marvel was going to do, and I really, really, God, I hope they do it, because they've rebooted this Spider-Man franchise like 3 times now. Yeah. They've screwed it up time and time again, but when I caught wind and heard that they were going to do a Sinister Six movie, which is a complete villain movie, nothing but death and destruction. I mean, you can't ask for anything more. And I think if they go this route and get this movie under their belt, now that they have that they've pulled the Spider-Man franchise kind of away from Sony, and they're going to be able to do a little bit more with it. I mean, they could really knock that out of the park, and I think it's going to allow them to really kind of dabble and show people a little more backstory and a little more of who these villains are.
Like a darker tone, maybe too.
And not to develop so much of you just caring about them, but knowing why these people are so evil and what the hell's going on in their heads. Other than the fact that you just see like that. That was the thing about Ronin is I mean. Yes, they give you they give you a little bit, but like with Ronin, like you knew, he is pissed off. Yeah. He has had all this taken from him, and he's out basically for revenge. But at the same time, like there's so much more to that story that I felt like they could have given you. And with Thanos, these guys, they've got 2 epic giant movies to kind of expand with this. It's really up to them. I mean, to either knock it out of the park or basically kind of screw it up once again. I really hope they don't, because I mean, with this movie, I don't think they really did very much wrong.
No,
at all.
I agree. So that's our review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Mm-hmm. I'm going to call our Marvel discussion and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 review. So because we went off on it and we talked a little bit more about some Marvel stuff, but we set up kind of our context about where we were going into this movie before we decided to review it. So Hopefully down the road when our reviews, we'll do them a little shorter for you guys. But we wanted to do some context where we were coming from with our Marvel reviews because I haven't done really any Marvel stuff on the channel yet, like any reviews. So I wanted to kind of go with our context of where we're coming from and where the original film sat and what we liked about some of the other films and what we didn't like. So maybe we'll do some before Infinity War comes out. We'll review some of the other Marvel films and talk more about them, or at least the Avengers films leading up to that. So maybe we'll do that. But I'm Jeff. This is Jason. He'll be back again with me sometime. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time we do a review or whatever we do next time. All right.
Later, guys.